First up, plastic surgery number 1, rhinoplasty. In 1979, at the age of 21, Jackson reportedly underwent his first rhinoplasty after breaking his nose during a dance rehearsal, although it's likely that the main driver was also cosmetic. Having been catapulted into fame as a child, Jackson spent his adolescence under the spotlight and critiqued for his appearance. His father, Joseph Jackson, physically and mentally abused Michael at a young age, using derogatory names towards him and his appearance, one being Big Nose. This abuse affected Michael throughout his life. Michael Jackson entrusted Stephen Hoffman to conduct the procedure, plastic surgeon for the likes of Elizabeth Taylor, Joan Rivers, Ivana Trump, and Jackson's preferred choice for many years to come. Before surgery, Jackson had a typical nose of someone from African descent. It was broad at the bridge, with less definition at the tip. After surgery, what was achieved was a sensitively done, slimmer and more defined result. However, the surgery was not a complete success, and he complained of breathing difficulties that would affect his singing. Second rhinoplasty, 1981. During the hiatus between his album Off the Wall and his mega hit Thriller, Michael Jackson decided to go back to Stephen Hoffman, who performed his second rhinoplasty in 1981. Hoffman later explained, "Noses sometimes can't be reduced all at once. It took a 2-stage procedure." The result of the second stage procedure made Jackson's nose even narrower and the tip less bulbous, with more nostril definition. But, unfortunately, not all Michael Jackson's surgeries would later be voluntary. Treatment for second-degree burns. In January 1984, Michael and the other members of the Jacksons filmed a Pepsi commercial in Los Angeles. During a simulated concert before a full house of fans, pyrotechnics accidentally set Jackson's hair on fire, causing second-degree burns on his scalp and extensive hair loss on top of his head. Michael Jackson endured through a series of painful surgeries to fix his burns. The hair on his head reportedly never grew back, and the injuries were so severe that it's thought to spark his painkiller addiction that would later result in his death in years to come. A third rhinoplasty, 1984. After his extensive burn treatments, Jackson decided to have another rhinoplasty. As part of this treatment, they reduced and dramatically flattened his nostrils, as well as further refining the tip, giving it a slight upturned appearance. A fourth rhinoplasty, 1986. During the period between his albums Thriller and Bad, Michael Jackson had his fourth rhinoplasty in 1986. The result of this procedure is a much more pinched appearance. Chin implant, 1986. Inspired by Kirk Douglas, Michael Jackson had a dimple made in his chin. This could be achieved by the use of a chin implant, or in some circumstances, created using dermal fillers. Although, his autopsy report stated that he had 2 incision marks at the bottom of his chin, so we can assume that Jackson chose to have the implant. This gave him a more defined and masculine appearance, contrasting with his more feminine upper half of his face. But, from this point on, it's unclear exactly what other surgery Michael Jackson had. But what we do know is that from 1986, Michael Jackson became a regular client of Arnold Klein, a dermatologist that specializes in dermal filler injections, to treat Jackson for severe acne and scarring that had occurred through cosmetic surgery. It is almost undeniable that Michael Jackson had further surgeries on his nose. Because his nose partially collapsed, this led to a series of surgeries in order to repair the damage caused, but this would have been minor surgeries over several years to come. In 1984, Michael Jackson was diagnosed with lupus, an illness that causes a higher risk of infection and destroys skin tissue. It was precisely because of this disease that he had further surgeries on his nose, reconstructive, not plastic. Lupus also causes overall hair loss, including eyebrows and eyelashes, which Michael Jackson had tattooed later on. We also know that Michael Jackson continued to have extensive treatments to resolve his burns injuries, including several tissue expanders on his scalp, which consist of balloons that blow up to expand the skin on the scalp, with the hope of stretching the skin over and cutting the scar tissue out. Hats have to be worn during this period, and because of this, the fedora became a signature for Jackson. But unfortunately, because of Jackson's lupus, these surgeries were never a success, and the bald spot would keep enlarging. It is also thought that Jackson may have had a brow lift, which made his eyebrows appear higher and more arched. And based on his autopsy report that indicated that there were a scar behind each of his ears, which were likely to be as a result of cosmetic surgery, this is likely to be true. During the later years of his life, Arnold Klein, Michael Jackson's longtime dermatologist, said their aim was to rebuild his face so he looked a lot more normal, including a reconstruction using fillers. He said that his nose was small, but was beginning to look a lot more natural again. Restylane, a temporary tissue filler, was injected to build up areas of the face and even out others that had been visibly impacted by infection, scarring, and the effects of his long-term illnesses. The media didn't help with the public perception of his face, as they often made his face a national focus, periodically plastering the front covers with pictures of Jackson looking at his worst, alongside a whole new list of procedures he had supposedly undertaken. The reality is that for much of the 90s and into the 2000s, it was largely because of non-invasive changes, like his hair or a change in his makeup, as well as the effect of his ongoing health issues that made his appearance change so drastically, and not the result of cosmetic surgery.